Well, LSU big winners on Saturday night as they go on the road and take down the Arkansas Razorbacks. My name is Bryce Koon here on the Go 24/7 Reaction Podcast. Glenn still battling the traffic out in Fayetteville, so we're getting this up late into the Saturday evening, early Sunday morning. Obviously, if you're on the East Coast as well, but a big win, 34-10. The LSU Tigers knock off a rival in Arkansas, and folks, there's kind of some points I want to make about this game, and there's some takes that I have, and we'll flesh these out. You can head over to Go 24/7 for all kind of the written content. Obviously, we'll do a lot of that here on the podcast. But I think that my biggest takeaway, the biggest concept from this game, going on the road and winning is hard. Going on the road in the SEC is difficult. Going on the road in the SEC with the current state of this conference is extremely difficult. And I said this earlier this week. This is a team that has been battle tested over and over again. And unlike a lot of other teams, they've come out unblemished for the most part. Obviously, they have the opening season loss to USC, but they go on the road to South Carolina and they drop that game. They could have, they might have, but they didn't. They find a way to go win the game. They come back home. They don't really play well necessarily offensively against Ole Miss. They stay into the game. They stay until the end. They keep battling. They keep fighting, and they win the football game. This is a battle-tested team. There was a lot of conversation coming into this one. Well, this could be a letdown game. This could be one of those games that emotionally, can you get back up for? Can you get off the mat after being in an emotional 60-plus minute affair against Ole Miss, one of your bitter rivals, and then go on the road to what's going to be a hostile environment? That fan base and that team believes they've got just as good of a shot against you as they have in a decent amount of time. And you not only go there, and yes, there might have been some scares and there's things we can nitpick in and around the corners, but for 60 minutes, you played about as complete of a game that you've played all year. And you did it on the road. You did it in a raucous atmosphere. And that speaks volumes about the team. It speaks volumes about the evolution of a team from week 1 to week 8. Folks, teams are allowed to do that. Teams are allowed to struggle and then get better. And it's exactly what's happening with this LSU team. They're growing up before our very eyes. So to go on the road against Arkansas, and I don't know what record the Razorbacks are going to finish with, and people might view it as just a blip on the schedule, 9-10 months from now. But on October 19th into the wee hours of October 20th, we need to recognize what this is. It's a road win in a hostile environment, and you took care of business. Mostly drama-free. Yes, there's things you can always clean up, but you took care of business. And a big part of that was your quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier. Threw for 224 yards, no touchdowns, completed 67% of his passes. He also had what I felt like was, 5 yards on the ground, but man, he was able to kind of make some moves as well. And that can always be, developed or whatever, however you want to call that. But this is a quarterback who led you into battle and found a way to win. This team obviously accounted for 384 yards, 226 to the air, like I just mentioned, 158 on the ground. And look, I've mentioned this many times. If this team finds a way to be balanced, if they find a way to help out Garrett Nussmeier in the passing game where he doesn't have to throw for 300-plus yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns, which also probably means that he's throwing less passes into danger. There's not as many times where he has to force a ball into a tight window because you're running the ball at a 4.3 yard per clip. And you've got a running back in Caden Durham who's capable of breaking 1 or 2 tackles, hitting the correct hole, and taking it 40 or 50 yards. Caden Durham, the freshman, finishes with 21 carries, 101 yards, and 3 touchdowns. This was a complete complementary offensive performance. CJ Daniels. We talked about CJ Daniels. What did you need to see out of him in terms of getting back from injury? A lot of people said, hey, this is a guy who lit it up at Liberty. Where is he? 7 catches for 86 yards. He was targeted 10 times. He's a part of the game plan. 31 yards after the catch. Kyron Lacey, 6 for 49. Aaron Anderson, 3 for 36. Mason Taylor, 2 for 16. And he had some big plays. Xavion Thomas, 1 for 11. Josh Williams, 1 for 11. Tradez Green, 1 for 8. And a massive, massive 2-point conversion catch as well. Caden Durham had a catch for 7 yards, and Kamorian Pimpton had one for 2 yards. You had 9 different receivers get a catch. You had 4 have more than one. You're spreading the ball out. You're telling the defenses, we're not honing in on one specific guy. You've got to play full complementary defense on your side of the ball to be able to stop us. And that's one of the biggest lessons that we learned in this football game, is that even on the road, not in the friendly confines of Tiger Stadium and Death Valley, but you can go somewhere else and you can execute at a high level. You can play a complete brand of football, and it pays off. And that speaks volumes about where this team has come from week one. We sat here, folks, a month ago wondering what in the world's going to happen after this team struggled to a win against Nichols. That's all due respect to Nichols. But the performance laid out by this team is impressive. It should not be overlooked. And it's actual, real, tangible growth that you're seeing throughout the season. You had an Arkansas offense that was 8th in the country in total offense, 277 yards and 38 yards on the ground. Brian Kelly has preached that you have to run the football in this league. And I'm not going to insult your intelligence if you're watching or listening. You know, in the SEC, you have to have a competent run game. When you hold a team to 38 rushing yards and a flat 2 yards per carry, that's a non-existent run game. Taylon Green had negative 10 rushing yards with his sacks. He did go 21 to 31 for 239, but you can live with 239 yards through the air when you're only allowing 38 on the ground. I wanted to get this stat for you because I thought it was very, very impressive, I should say. LSU's defense tonight, just 10 points allowed, 277 total yards. Excuse me. 38 rushing yards, 2 yards per carry, 3 turnovers, and 0 red zone trips allowed. This is a masterclass by Blake Baker and this defensive staff. This is a championship level staff in Baton Rouge. You have an opportunity. We'll talk about this in a second. But you had an opportunity to lay down just a couple weeks ago, and this team has gotten back off the mat. And this defense, which myself and pretty much the entire media contingency covering this team had massive questions about. And you went out on the road and you slowed down one of the top 10 offenses in the country. I get it. Arkansas is not explosive. They're efficient. And what they do, they're pretty good at. And they've been pretty good at it this season. And you went down there and shut them down. So that's kind of the takeaway part of this. And I'm going to talk about maybe going forward what I believe to be. But just kind of wanted to point out some things as well. This defense, we can talk about it. A lot of people on social media right now may be getting their feelings hurt. They might be getting a little frustrated or whatever, because there's a conversation and there's a narrative kind of coming around that Harold Perkins being gone is better for this team. And I want to preface by saying this. Harold Perkins is an elite football player. For whatever reason, they could not figure out, whether it's on Perkins, whether it's on the staff, the best utilized fit for him. What I will say is this new personnel grouping that you're seeing on the defensive side of the football, it's like and I'm sure you've done it. Remember that puzzle that you used to do at Grandma's house on Christmas Eve, getting ready to open up presents? And you get those final couple pieces in, every piece starting to fall into place. And that's what this LSU defense is. It's nothing against what Harold Perkins is or nothing against what Harold Perkins was. Right now, this defense is clicking on all cylinders. If it's not broke, you don't fix it. And Blake Baker has this as a machine humming right now. For 2 straight weeks against 2 efficient offenses, you have dominated them at the point of attack. This defensive line is aggressive. They're ferocious. You're getting production out of veteran guys that have not seen this level of production before in their career. Once again, nothing against those young players, but Braden Swinson, Savion Jones, Gio Paez, JVR Suggs, these were not, in all due respect, these were not all SEC type of players. Braden Swinson's a borderline All-American candidate. Savion Jones might be on an All-SEC team. Gio Paez was viewed as a filler. JVR Suggs was another body. And these guys are now contributing members to one of the better playing defenses in the SEC currently. And one of the better playing pass rushes in the country. It speaks volumes. This defensive staff has found something that's worked, and they went on the road, like I've said multiple times here on this show, and they proved everyone wrong. And they not only just proved everyone wrong, but they made this unit be feared. And it was something that was feared by the fans last year. Now it's feared by opposing fans and opposing coaches this year. This defense is becoming a nightmare for offensive coordinators to scheme and block against. The linebacker position, look, Whit Weeks is unbelievable. Whit Weeks is playing legitimately like his hair is on fire. The tipped pass into the interception that he had is something that you see on highlight reels for the next 20, 30, 40 years. Myself and all you LSU fans will be showing that to our kids and our grandkids. Hey, LSU had this kid. At one point, he wore cornrows. His name was Whit Weeks. He was from a country town outside of Athens, Georgia, and the hometown team couldn't even get him. And we got him to come all the way down to the bayou, and look what he did. Whit Weeks is a playmaker. You're seeing these young players step up as well. And although there's concerns on the back end in the secondary, I do agree there's things when you face a team that really wants to air it out. Yeah, but you got data points. This front seven's legit. And if, as this group, and I'll say this front seven is allowing this secondary to fall into place in their roles and grow. And that's what you needed. That's exactly what you needed. Zy Alexander rounding into form. Obviously, Ashton Stamps is continuing to grow. You've got guys at the back end that are playing above themselves. This is a solid defense. So I got the question tonight as I was watching this. Obviously, like I said, Glenn's in Fayetteville, and I was watching with some family friends. And they said, well, Bryce, what now? What's the expectation now? And, we were watching the end of the Texas-Georgia game, Alabama and Tennessee game. A lot of you know that I'm not a fan. I didn't grow up a fan of LSU. But what I will tell you this. The expectation's Atlanta. The expectation should be Atlanta. Texas A&M is a dang good ball club. There should be an expectation now, not a hope, but an expectation for this LSU team to go into Kyle Field on a night game and emerge victorious. There should be an expectation for them to come home, take the bye week, and welcome an Alabama team that is nowhere near the mystique and the legend that they were under Nick Saban, and let Tiger Stadium torment them for 60 minutes. Vanderbilt, you're a feel-good story. The story should end in Nashville. The story that has been in Nashville should end in Baton Rouge. Oklahoma, anemic offense. Got a great defense, anemic offense. Saturday after Thanksgiving should be the dessert to what it should be a successful season. And you should be getting ready for a game in December in Atlanta. I left out Florida there, but you obviously got to go to Florida. Florida's 3-3. We'll see obviously what happens to them. 4-3 now with the win they had tonight. But what I'm saying is the expectation's Atlanta. This group is growing, developing, and you don't want to move back the goalpost. But now with what you're seeing across the SEC, and you're seeing these are the two top teams, there's a path. There's a way. And this is a team that has found a way to get to their end result, the one they wanted, more oftentimes than they have not. And it's starting to become a trend that this is a team that can get what they want by any means necessary. So I'm interested to see what happens next weekend in Kyle Field. I'll be there. Make sure you get good coverage. Go 24/7 Podcast is the place you want to be. Subscribe to this channel. Subscribe to the feed wherever you're listening to your podcast. Head over to Go 24/7 for all that written content. No better place to hang out if you're an LSU fan. We've got great recipes. We've got a great fan base. Make sure you come over and hang out with us. My name is Bryce Koon. This is the Instant Reaction. LSU takes care of business against a quality Arkansas team. Do not let that be lost. Don't go to work and let your friends tell you, well, Arkansas is not that good. We got to stop moving the goalpost back when someone accomplishes something. Well, they're not that good. It's time to give somebody else credit. Arkansas is a good football team. LSU went in there and manhandled them. Very convincingly. One of the more convincing wins on a Saturday where there weren't a lot in this SEC play. That's a big one. LSU wins 34-10. My name is Bryce Koon. Thanks so much for tuning in. We will catch you next time here on the Go 24/7 podcast.